Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the Honest Podcast. I have my friend Josh Porter here, one of my oldest friends from America. I mean, who better than to have someone on that you really trust, you've done life with? And this guy here, I'll just tell you a little bit from my side who he is to me. Back when I just got saved, came into America. I walked into this conference. I was scared out of my mind. Like, what am I doing? I don't know anybody here. I'm on my own. I just left my missionary friends, and they just went back. And I was like, I'm in America. Like, what am I gonna do? This guy runs up to me. He jumps and he does a full on. He just tackles me down. I'm like, what the hell? And this guy, yeah, he became a close friend. Took me in as a stray dog into Helen Kuzino's house. Basically convinced her to keep me in the house, and that really started an amazing friendship where we inspired each other in many ways. We're still friends to this day. It's been how long now?
Oh, 10 years, at least 10
10
years.
years. Yeah, 10 years, man. You're still the same person, and you've changed so much in the same sentence, man. It's pretty epic. Yeah, so tell people who you are. And I love to jump right in.
Yeah, well, thanks so much, man. Great to see you again. Great to be on the podcast. I know we kind of text back and forth and
Hey,
had a whole honesty podcast before the honesty podcast. Just catching
exactly,
up, like,
man.
okay, let's hit record. Man,
Yeah.
gosh, God has been so good. So, my name's Joshua Paul, and I guess you want like my testimony or
Whatever you want, man.
all right, cool. So I guess I was raised in the church, raised very young. I was so young when I swam in the baptism pool to get out of it. So that's how little I was. But I was a little bit wayward, and you know how that goes. So I was sort of
Yeah.
back and forth. I really just, God protected me from something. I felt from a young age that I was called into some form of ministry. I had no idea what that was. I just felt like God said, preacher. And because we had a little bit of an Orthodox background, I've been even with the Messianic a little bit, mostly Baptist. I was like, well, maybe I'll just be a priest or something. I just didn't know. I just knew I was called to something, and God protected me throughout all my wayward time as I was bouncing around. Been to 21 different countries to try and figure out who God is. It had to be logical first. So I went through all the whole apologetics thing of like, if there is a God, is there isn't a God, all that stuff. Landed with the most logical conclusion was the Abrahamic religions, and then closer to Christianity, and then from Christianity it was Pentecostal, charismatic. Because for some reason Christianity has to make a division between the gifts and not gifts,
Yeah,
which to
what
me
you're
is
right. Blows my mind.
it's such a small issue in my opinion.
I
But okay,
know.
so
I agree.
went through kind of that. Saw some, and what really helped out was a breakdancing crew, breakdancing a community down in
Mm.
Florida. Yeah, I was working for Walt Disney World, and I connected with some b-boys and breakdancers, which is what I did. Next thing you know, I'm at a Bible study because after they're done practicing, Lito opens up a Bible, and now I'm asking all these questions, and God just grabs a hold of me. A ministry picks me up, Reinhard Bonnke, Daniel Kolenda, Christ for All Nations, out of like nowhere. I get a call, and they're like, come in. We think this is your next job. Everyone who was around me was like double my age. So the whole
Wow.
thing was just nuts. So I just but before I get launched out, they're just like, hey, this is your job. Before I get launched out, I'm just praying down on the ground. And this is a little bit of interesting is I had never really been baptized in the Holy Spirit, never spoken in tongues. I'd seen other miracles and stuff like that. But everyone around me was like, you gotta get baptized in the Holy Spirit. And I was like, well, what's that? Right. Exactly like Acts 19. And then I'm about to go the week before I go to the mission field. I guess the mission field, right? Go with Reinhard Bonnke and his crew. My buddy Antonio and his mom, Christina, they're just laying hands on me just to send me out, and I just start weeping and singing in tongues, and just felt like the power kind of fell. And then really that was a turning point in my life. I went out, did some stuff throughout the United States, which is where I landed in Texas, and through the ministry. And I felt like God said, you can stay here. It'll be easier, right? Because it's the Bible Belt. Or you can go to Chicago, which was the next stop, and your destiny's there, which I knew he said wife. So
Wow.
right. So it's like, okay, it'd be easy, right? So there was one of my friends told me once, he says, if you want to do what Jesus did, stay single. If you want to be like Jesus, get married. And
That's
so
good.
yeah, so I went up there. Of
That'll
course,
be the
there's
tagline right there.
a lot of different back and forth. Stayed with some different people, connected with you. Thank God you were to answer the prayer. We
Yeah,
were able to
same.
kind of connect. A lot of different awesome opportunities. After a little while, I go on a mission trip to Honduras. I come right back, and then there's this girl at the coffee shop, a little area of church, who's about to go to Honduras. We click, we connect. Next thing you know, we're married.
Hey.
Guy kind of navigates. I have a full-time job, and then I get into pastoring, so I have a full-time job, usually 55 hours a week, and then I'm a pastor, and on top of that I work. I'm in school, so I'm in school for being a pastor. I am licensed, but like the next levels I have like 2 more years or something, hopefully less. I'm trying to get that less, and then yeah, and then I got kids. I got two young kids, and then yeah, we live outside Chicago. And now I'm on top of that. I've got this kind of YouTube thing I've been doing for a while. That picked up a lot, and hopefully we'll pick up a little more. We'll just see what God wants to
Absolutely.
do with it. We can. So that's kind of where I'm at. I'm a pastor. I'm of course father, husband,
Yeah.
and I guess now sort of a YouTuber and a student. Did I get everything?
Yeah.
Oh, and I work
Absolutely.
for.
And a breakdancer. Yeah.
Oh yeah,
So,
not as much anymore, but yeah. I can
yeah.
still, I guess, I still do a little bit. You know what I mean?
You can still do a windmill or two, you know?
A little bit. Actually, that's the goal. The goal is to get my windmill back. So we'll see.
Wow. Dang, it takes me back, man. I was just so many memories came up. I was thinking one time, was it a Taiwanese event? Man, I
It
think
was
about this quite often. What
the
was it?
Indonesian consulate.
Yes, that is it. Indonesian consulate, man. And I think we were invited because we went on that interview. It was the most random series of events. We
The
met someone who had an Indonesian studio, and they wanted to interview both of us. And then it moved us into this space where we went to this massive meeting with important people. And somehow we got in, and you started breakdancing in front of the whole crew. And that was kind of what I remember you as back in the day was you're in with the young kids, with the street youths, was breakdancing and then the gospel. And for me, back then, worship was my life. It was everything. It's the only thing I lived, breathed, and did. And there too, they just allowed us to somehow like do a worship song. It was so random, dude.
dude, that was I. We actually talk about that a lot because we have some
Yeah.
missionaries from Indonesia, and I'm like, uh,
Dang, dude. Yeah. So what was your experience of that space, man?
and the consulate at that. That was
And
nuts.
that was your thing too, is you documented so much of your life. If it wasn't video, it was photos. If it wasn't photos, it was pun videos.
Oh yeah.
And oh my gosh, the punny season
Oh, it's still. Oh,
was
here it is, dude. Here it is. Let's
you
bring
gotta
him back.
show it
Let's
up.
bring him. Here it is. All
You
right.
gotta flip the
This
phone.
is young Anthony. I hope it works. We'll have to
Yeah,
send
it
you the one that
works,
you can put
dude.
on. Look at that.
Yes, dude. My gosh.
God
Back in the
opened
day.
up so many doors for us back in the day. I
Wow.
mean, still, he's still opening them up, but it's just like,
Yeah.
who would have thought,
But it's different, right?
you
I
know?
feel like once you have family, it's like warp speed slows down, but internal warp speed turns on. It's because that's when you're single, you can go anywhere. There's just there's no cap on waking up early, going midday, just winging it, and driving wherever you want across state on a whim. But when you get married, it's like you actually deal with the stuff that you didn't even know existed inside of you. And
Yes.
then it's like your warp speed turns on in that space and you have to swim, otherwise you sink really quickly.
It's like God is always it's kind of like the word. The word is scripture is all truth, but it's not all the same type of truth. And the way that God
That's good,
works
dude.
on us and works in us is not always the same. That's why I'm not super judgy on people who struggle with sin because different
Mm,
that sin is worse than mine. It's like no, like God may
mm,
be just working on something else in their life right now. Like we can't handle it. like I'm
exactly.
sure you know this as a married man, as a man who as a father is you'll look at people not to judge them, but just understanding, hey, like there's certain things you're not going to get right now, because maybe you're not in
Mm.
this season. Maybe you don't have kids. Maybe you don't have a wife. Maybe you don't have grandkids. I'm sure they're going to look at us and say there's things you don't understand. You haven't been through
Right.
wars. So everybody has something different that they're learning and processing, and God is working on. And so I would
Mm.
love that the moment we come to Jesus, everything's addressed and you're instantly 100% Jesus,
I wish.
but
Yeah.
it's progressive sanctification. And so
Wow.
exactly. And so while you're single, there are certain things that you're able to do and God is working on. And then while you are married, there's certain things that you are to do and God is working on. And they're not always the same, but then they flip flop. And then God's like, hey, I just opened up time, or I'm working on this. And
Mm.
it should be progressive. I mean, somebody was like, if a plant's not growing, it's dead. And it's same with us,
Right.
right? So many plant analogies.
Absolutely.
We need to be growing. And so and it's wonderful. That's what you were talking about before, even with your wife on the last podcast, of expectations. It's like
Mm.
we don't know. We can have a general outlines. God can give us general words, but then that's why we prophesy in part. We know in part.
Mm.
We prophesy in part, and that's from God. But that know in part, we don't really know where does our knowing start. Like we just don't know. And you know some of the crazy part of my story, getting mixed
Yeah.
up with all sorts of crazy stuff. 100% fully convinced with the word, thinking I was right, learning like I wasn't right. And that brings back to really just you know, being able to hold everything with an open hand, whether it's your
Wow.
plans, whether it's your passions, whether it's, your identity, all these things,
Wow.
constantly going back to God and saying, well, what is this? Well, what is this? I mean, this part of why I'm on YouTube is I felt like God called me to preach, and there was a COVID hit and then family happens and all this. I'm like, how do I preach? And I remember, this is a personal thing. People used to come up to me, especially in ministry, and say, I want to be a missionary. And I'm like, okay, great. What are you doing for the mission work? Well, I'll do it when I get there. It's like, no, no, no. You need to steward the small things. Like, are you
Mm.
stacking chairs? Or, okay, you have a calling to, I don't know, Indonesia. Okay, are you helping with an Indonesian community here? Are you learning the language? Are anything
Yes.
like that? And so I felt like God was like, put your money where your mouth is. Like you say that about preaching. Okay, you can't go to the train station anymore. You're not able to go out as much anymore. You live outside Chicago, not in it anymore. So you're not going to see people every day just walking out of your place. So what does that look
Mm.
like? And I said, well, I guess I could. And then I threw some things out, and he's like, basically like letting me just do. So that's where the YouTube kind of started as well. I guess
Wow.
yeah, I can push one button and go into all the world. That's not to discredit actual missions, because I think it's both. I think it's both all. But if you go
Yeah.
into a public square and you look at everybody, for the most part, what are they doing?
Yep. Exactly.
So
The downwards.
if you want to go where people are, yes, go into all the physical world, which is important, but also don't neglect like here, because that's where people are too. And I had to kind of get over that, and people judging for that. It's like, listen, I'm just trying to be faithful to God. I want to be found faithful.
Mm.
I want to be up there in heaven when the guys are out there. You know why the gospel was spread so well? It's because the Roman road. They had roads.
Wow.
They had communication,
That's
and
so
so
good.
you look at that, and then you look at radio, and then what is it? Radio evangelist, and then television, tele-evangelist, and then so it's just internet, and then you have internet
Wow.
evangelists, and now you have social media, and then whatever's after social media, right? Holograms or whatever. But it's like this. I want to be on the forefront. So when I just have this image that's just ingrained in my head, and I don't know if it's from God or what. It's just something I think about sometimes. Is I picture myself in heaven at like a water cooler with Moses and Noah and Paul and Elijah, all these greats, right?
Mm.
And I just pictured them saying like, this was how this is what I was given. Paul's given this ship, and then he takes the ship to Rome, and then you've got Noah, and he's out there preaching for 120 years, and you just go down the list of like all these people utilizing what God has for them, and all the disciples saying, we went on the Roman roads to go out into all the
Mm.
worlds, and some of them ending up here and there and all over the world, and then I'll explain to them, hey, when I was around, we had the internet. I could push one button and reach pretty much everywhere. And with a VPN, you can even get into the 1040 window, like literally, like
Wow.
potentially
That's
anywhere.
so cool.
And they'd be like, oh,
Wow.
wow, here's what I could just picture Paul saying. Like, I wish I had that. And then what did you do for the gospel with that? And that just
Mm.
kind of not like a condemning thing. And some people don't have that call.
Wow.
And that's totally cool, because I get
Yeah.
it.
But
People are different.
there's people here that's watching, and I think what you just said it will hit home. You know what I'm saying? Because I didn't even think of it that way. It's like, okay, if Paul felt that way, which we know he did. I mean, that guy was using every inch that was given to him, and he was turning it into a freaking arm and a leg. But I think you're right. This is the time now. And you and I both feel the same way. It's like, okay, we have to use whatever tool we have at our disposal to reach everyone. And yours has always been very clear. It's like pastoral. Man, if there's anything that you've taught me over the years is consistency. I watch you open the Bible every single night, and you did the exact same thing every single day. And you're still the same person. It's your consistency is absolutely inspiring, man. You've been doing social media for so long. You've been consistent with it regardless of how successful it might have felt or seemed, but you have a mandate, you have something you're going after. And I think that's something people watching can really latch on to. I have this desire to do something. It's failed so often and I've given up. I think the key to success, if you don't give up, you win, right? It's this the consistency really is what brought you where you are today. You know, your story, I don't know how much you want to go into what you've been through or the places you've been subjected to that you've had to deal with for long periods of time and you've had to get a lot of healing for. You've been so consistent, man. You should be proud of yourself.
Thank you, brother. It's all leaning on him. You know,
Yeah.
it's all him. People like, if you're still around and breathing, you've been consistent. And two is like, I hear what you're saying, but I think that like God has such an amazing plan for everyone, but He's not gonna like push them into it. I don't know. I actually say this a lot of times on my lives. I'm like, I don't know if I'm gonna keep doing this. I'm just trying to be
Mhm.
faithful with what I know for now. Like, and that's literally it. And you're gonna be wrong so often. My pastor has a little puppet, and he says, "You are not a puppet. God doesn't just puppet you. Doesn't just possess your soul, and do all these things. You say yes. It's a bunch of yeses. When you get saved, your free will doesn't go away. You don't just become a puppet of Jesus. Like the idea is that you submit, right? You submit, you lay down your life, and the more Jesus shows through you, but you're still you. And that's that kind of weird dichotomy of the two. And I just want to try to be found faithful to saying yes. The problem with me is I get a lot of tunnel vision. And
Mhm.
so when God does want to reroute, divert, detour, it's hard for me to do that because I've
Mhm.
just been so passionate about it. And I just keep thinking like I'm not stopping. I'm not stopping going towards God just because I'm stopping this thing. I'm just rerouting a little bit. It's like even
Wow.
rejection. You get rejected by somebody, you lose a job, something doesn't work out. And then you have to kind of struggle between was this God closing a door or was this the enemy? These are real genuine questions. It makes it very difficult. At the point you just step. God orders your steps. That means you're stepping. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
It says that all these signs and all these miracles, all this stuff will follow you as you go. It doesn't say as
So
you're
good.
perfect. It doesn't say as you get it. It's as you go. And so, no, none of the disciples. Look at Peter, bro. Like, all these guys, even Paul, he's like, I do things I don't want to do. So all these guys are just flawed humans, and I'm just a
Mhm.
flawed human, just trying to figure it out. And so even through that season of kind of getting mixed up with sort of the wrong people and really getting into some of the things I did were really good, but the other stuff were extremely not not good. And even that whole season, I look at it, yeah, but I was just trying to be faithful, and I learned a
Yeah.
ton through that season. And I felt like God used it. You never fail if you learn. You never fail
Hmm.
if you're growing. You only think you fail because you've restricted God's plan for your life
Mhm.
to whatever you designed it. Remember? It's what we said, prophesy in part and know in part. And I think honestly, had I not been in that environment where it was very spiritual, but you were still wrong, how could you be standing on scripture still wrong? Like
Hmm.
eye opening to us that you can know everything there is to know. You can memorize this whole thing, and like a Pharisee, where Jesus
Wow.
could stand in front of your face and you miss him. And I think that experience showed me that. I think one of my favorite verses is Proverbs 26. Proverbs 26. Within two verses, it says, "Don't answer a fool according to his folly," and then right after it says, "Answer a fool according to his folly."
Mm.
Those are two verses right next to each other. I may be paraphrasing that a little bit, maybe mix it. I wix my words a little bit, but that's what it is. Just because you have a Bible verse to back it up, just because you have fruit, doesn't mean you're on the
Mm,
right path. But at the same time, just because you don't doesn't mean you're not as well. I mean, get in the Word and get people around you. I think my biggest mistake with that whole community was they basically removed all voices that disagree.
mm,
So that was, I think, the biggest flaw to that, because I think had you not removed every voice, said, hey, stop talking here, hey, stop listening to this, whatever it was, or even the peer pressure to do it, the peer pressure, even if you didn't say it,
mm,
which they did sometimes say it, the peer pressure of that environment is not good. You need to always be listening to people who disagree with you. I see this a lot. I suggest, so one of the guys I'm under for the YouTube, he's one of the largest Christian content creators on, like, just on the platforms. He's got one of the most engaging profiles on YouTube. So
mm,
I'll say his name, Brian Romero. So Brian Romero, and he's got like 5 million subscribers. And he just put a video out about people and hateful comments and things. And it says a lot of scripture, because when these things happen, it says, bless those who persecute you, right?
mm,
And so God's working in the spirit realm, and there's all these things happening, and we realize that our battle's not with them, it's with the enemy. Father, forgive them, they know not what they do. But on the other side of that, we get better through criticism.
mm,
There was some pastor said this: if it weren't for my critics, I wouldn't be as good as I am today. And it's not
mm,
because they were hating on him and he went to go be like, I'm going to bless you. No, it's like,
mm,
what if how I prophesy in part and know in part, they're knowing in part and they're prophesying in part, whether they realize it or not? Something they
mm,
are saying is true. And I need to seek God of what in that nugget is
wow,
true to try and grow and try and move on to the next thing. So I think with the consistency and with all that is just, I can be consistent because I'm not anchoring my hope in the thing I'm doing. I'm anchoring
yeah,
it
come on.
as much as I can in God, and I want to be the best I can be for God, and I want to
Mm,
do the, as Reinhard Bonnke said, or Bonnke says, I press in for God's maximum.
mm,
As they hit the arrows on the ground, he says you should have hit all of them on the ground. You know all the stories of, if you had just gone a little further, right? I wanted to do this. If someone had just stood in the gap, there's all these verses about just pressing in for God's maximum. And I
mm,
don't know, maybe we had the prophesying part and knowing part, maybe the maximum is, it looks totally different. I have no idea, but I have no idea until I start going, and then
right.
I just trust that God will guide me. Well, rather that, I know He'll guide me. I just hope
Mm,
that I'll be malleable enough to turn when He says turn. Because He says, if you love me, you'll keep my commandments. But He says this: those who are led by the Spirit are children of God. Led. And led doesn't mean He gave you a prophecy 10 years ago and you're still following it. Led means
right.
every step of the way. Every step of the way.
Wow.
Because we prophesy in part, know in part. And we were around all sorts of people. They were all telling us, like, we're young, we're zealous for the Lord. They're all going to tell you the same thing, right? But you can't go off everything. You got to write them down. Honestly, I mean, I could go into even like prophecies and stuff, and some of them they might
Mm,
be right. Honest, real quick detour. If you are young, you're getting prophecies about your wife, your spouse. Write them all down, because I remember I used to get prophecies about my spouse.
mm,
I was like, God, you got to help me about this, because I don't know, and I've heard a lot of different things. And if you're in circles, people will tell you things, and you got to get that one. That's an important one to get right. And I said, God, you got to make it obvious. And so I had written down 70 prophecies
right. I
about
remember
my wife.
this.
Yeah,
You actually
70
did you spoke this out as a full-on video
at my
at
wedding.
your wedding. I remember sitting there and I was in awe of the absolute detail. And again, like, I think this is what follows your life, and it's something that people are going to learn from as they do life. There's something on consistency with you. Just watching how you made a list of stuff, but you stuck to it. You really looked at every detail and you said, okay, it might be from the Lord, this is from the Lord, but at the end of the day, like, I am committing wholeheartedly to every line of this if it is you, and I'm not going to settle for anything but perfection. And you got exactly what you wanted. And then God gave you some more that you didn't expect that you wanted, you know? And it just, it beat you up a little, and then it spits you out with to be more mature and more Christ-like in the best ways, you know? So it's it was pretty impressive, man.
Yeah, God came through because I'm like, I need to make sure this is not me. I need to make sure it's you. But the truth is, it is a little bit of me. It is a little bit
Yeah.
of my preferences and my. So then he throws you off again. Once you think you figure it out, he throws you off, and he's like, oh, by the way, these things you didn't know that you know. My wife is the best gift giver. I have no idea how she does it. She finds things I didn't even know exist, and she buys them for me. And I'm like, so, I mean, just an example the other day, she used to realize how I used to touch my laptop because it would get hot. And then I would do that. I would never tell her it got hot. It would just get hot. And one day she comes up to me on, it was like my birthday or something. There's like a thing you can put underneath your iPad, your laptop to cool it. I did not even know they made those things. She was so observant. And it's like God does that with us. We're just faithful as much as we can be with God and with the things He's given us. And then He's going to give us the things that we need, some of the things that we want, and some of the things we don't even know that we wanted. And I just feel like
Mhm.
that's like a perfect example of, you know, how kind of God gives us things in our lives. You know, you don't even know you need it. Or He'll give me this thing. I'll be like, what is this? And then in a year, I'll be like, oh, that's what that was for. Like, oh,
Mhm.
that's why it's like, why am I doing apologetics? Or why did I do, oh, because I'm going to be on YouTube answering Q&As, once a week or twice a week for an hour and a half on YouTube. It's like, why did I do this? Why, and it doesn't always make sense. You're just saying yes. And as you say yes, you're being equipped so God can use you in that. Not that He can't just
Wow.
download, instantly, because he can just give you it, right? And that happens. But I think for the most part, if you go through Paul, specifically Paul, but others, is, he talks about us being like an athlete, like an Olympian, like a boxer, like a wrestler. It's all language of training yourself. This is for teaching, correcting, and rebuking, right? And then if for training in righteousness, if I did that right. Anyway, I may have missed,
Yeah.
but training, it
Those
says,
three
my hands
things.
are
Yes.
trained for war. Trained for war. So that's why when these
Mm.
people come up to me, back to the thing, and they're like, I'm called to the mission field. What are you doing to train for it? So
Wow.
there's just also, I just don't want to be a hypocrite. If I say I'm called to evangelize, then I need to be training in it. Like, I need to be doing these things. God can totally just download into me at the moment, and that happens. But I just want to be found faithful. So when I'm at that
Mhm.
water cooler, and when Paul comes and he asks me or whatever, I can say, you know what? I just want this. I did my best.
Mm.
That's it. And I'll be happy. I did my best. I did my best. Because you don't want to say I got on every because you're talking about consistency. I got on every
Right.
Sunday. It's like, you know what? I missed a couple Sundays because my kids were sick. You know what I mean? So you have to figure out what that consistency looks like. I did my
Right.
best, true, honest best, with the reality of how messy life is.
Exactly. And at the end of the day, family first, which is something I mean, since I remember you were like, since you could remember, you wanted to be married. It's like marriage was such an important part of your life. And we both had that in common. I was like, I can't wait to meet my wife. Then I got into a really tough, rough relationship. You saw the whole process of how it just ripped me to shreds during that time. But man, am I thankful. Like back then, I was saying like, God, I thought you said this is gonna be my wife, and I had this picture of what I thought it was supposed to look like when we started dating. I was like, oh God, you said this is my wife, and I made this stupid mistake of relaying that audibly and saying like God told me you're my wife, and it was, it's now I look back on, I think, oh, this is spiritual manipulation, like the process of saying like this is what I think it should be, and you don't really have a choice because now it's a mandate. It really takes you down a terrible rabbit hole in your journey. I remember when you were getting married, standing in for the pictures, we're standing in this place, and I was like, man, I'm not sure about this. And it was interesting. We were part of this church, and they were amazing people. Like they were so
Not the
zealous.
wedding, the
No,
people in the
no,
church.
yeah. And there was other people that I got to connect with over time that our communities kind of cross-pollinated. And the reason I wanted to bring this up is because a lot of people are going through this space of I'm in maybe a church community, and something feels off, but I don't know how to articulate things because I don't have the spiritual understanding, or I just want to give everything to God. And in whatever situation or season I'm in, sometimes we miss it. So I'm, it was interesting back then. I thought man, something's not right with this community, and I don't know how to articulate that. Speaking about a space where you might be involved in a cult, it might not be a cult in the sense of, oh, there's this guy who's lording over you and who's using you, but it could just be a subtle way of people using spiritual manipulation or control, and it turns into this weird thing that erupts into having many people and many communities being hurt. I don't know, would you want to go into more detail?
Yeah, absolutely. So first, with anything that deals with that, have compassion for the people doing it. I know that that's kind of crazy, but as a pastor, I've hurt people. I've certainly, manipulated people. I've done basically everything that those environments do. The difference
Mm,
is where I'm at, we have a lot of safeguards. And
mm,
so I may hurt somebody, but it won't get past a certain level because we're all in the light. We have a massive denomination. We've got people that can come in and audit, like all these different things. And so there's a little bit of protection there. But everything that has happened there, it's because it went to an extreme because there was no safeguards. There was no checks and balances. It was an echo chamber.
mm,
They ignored outside voices. Anything like that is a red flag. And what it was to me, the moment that really, there was a couple moments. One of the moments that really affected me was when my friend just suggested I go to another church.
mm.
And I was like, no. So it could be a denomination. No. So you have to really process that. If you're not willing to, whatever it is in your life, it's an idol. So the church became an idol. So in that environment, the church becomes an idol. It's not so much that we went to the best church, which you should think you go to the best church. I think that's good.
Sure, of course.
But
It's your
we started
friend,
to
it's your
look
community.
look down on everyone. I mean, I've seen, and this is not unique to where I was. This is even mainline down. You can start to get cult like in a massive church.
Absolutely.
So I think a lot of the things that I learned was when you go to a church, like really pay attention to the doctrines. The problem where we were was it was like 5 years. You had to
Mm,
earn like the special documents of that like actually taught what they taught. Now they taught the real Jesus. That's why
sure.
it's hard when you're talking about like, is it a cult? Is it not a cult? Well,
Right.
technically they taught the real Jesus, and a lot of it was sort of peer pressure-y weird stuff of like, did they really teach this or was this just kind of
Mm,
birthed? So it was really a gray area. But if anyone, I will say this, if anybody ever accuses you of being in a cult, take it seriously
yeah.
100% of the time. 100% of the time. And if someone says that, I mean, really the option is get a third party in,
Yeah.
have them come, and then don't just discourage their words and don't just discredit them.
Mm,
Listen to everything. Because especially as a pastor, I'm like, listen, not everyone's going to stay at my church forever. And I have to be
mm,
okay with that. And you as a congregant, you're not going to be at your church maybe forever.
no.
And just make sure you're there for the right reasons. And there's all sorts of things that you can't see when you're in it. You cannot see. That's the point of being blind, is you can't see it. The point of being deceived is there's a lot of good stuff, and but you miss the bad stuff, right? That's why like the Antichrist is not going to be some guy with pointy horns and a pitchfork. He's going to be very deceptive. He's probably going to know the Bible. He's probably going to talk to Christians like they're going to like him. But so
Mm,
the same thing with any church environment. When you are in these environments, you can't see it. You have to humble yourself and
mm,
say, I might not see the issues. And that's why we say, make sure you have outside voices. And that's why the number one of the biggest tellers is, are they discrediting you from listening to someone? Are they discrediting you from going here? Are they discrediting you from going to your family? Is any of these things. Now, there's a low level of that if you're in like intense counseling, and stuff like that. They might be like, hey, for a season, okay? For a
right.
season, you might need to do certain disconnectings and stuff. But if it's consistent, if you see it throughout the congregation, if it's, oh, it was just for 3 months, now it's for 6 months, now it's for a year, these should be red flags
Mm,
for you. And
yeah.
honestly, the best option is just to always be listening to people who disagree with you. That's why we talk
Uh,
about consistency and criticism. Critics will make you better. That's what you have to listen to them. You have to hear them out. You have to hear that they talked in part, but then the prophecy in part. So what God was saying. I mean, this environment, I refused, and then people all around me could see it, but I couldn't, and I thought
uh,
they were right. So it's one thing to believe you're at the best church, but I was like, they don't understand. No one understands. They're carnal. There's all these different phrasings that they would use to sort of keep discrediting every voice that went against them. and all the prophets got pushed out of the church too. So there's like a lot of red flags looking back. But in it,
Yeah.
it was like, yeah, you're carnal. Of course you're not going to understand. Well, you're
Right.
not as serious as the Bible's me. Or, hey, we're seeing salvations.
Right. Exactly. That makes total sense. I think it's so good to hear. I think whoever's listening to this and they're in a space where if it's church, if it's outside church, if you're being manipulated, it's really important to have community around you and people around you outside of the sphere of influence. Like you said, we need to listen to criticism. I think there was one time we were at like a diner of some sort and we were sitting around you, kind of having like this intervention time. And I remember thinking, this, it can grip you really tight. And because you're one of the most intelligent, smart people I know, someone who truly has deep dived into the Bible in a way that I have not. And I really respect that. And if someone like you can be caught, anybody can be caught. I think that's really important to share as well, because at the end of the day, no one is safe from being deceived. It doesn't matter if it's in a church, if it's pornography, if it's addictions. Someone can look extremely polished and perfect in on social media or your friends, your family, somebody in church even. And it's extremely easy to be deceived if we don't have voices in our life that's willing to say the things that no one wants to say because you're scared of hurting someone's feelings or creating a rift in the relationship. It's worth it. If you have someone in your life, you're like, man, like something's off and I love this person, you can't lose by just bringing it up and saying, hey, I hope you know I love you, but something's off.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And I was reading, I wish I had the verse here. It said, a maturity is knowing right from wrong. And you'd be like, I know right from wrong. No, we don't know right from wrong because that's the point of deception. That's the point of being blind.
Yeah.
If you look at the story of Adam and Eve in the garden, and if you look at the tree and it talks about how amazing that tree is, right? Okay, so this made me think of one of the first lessons in the Bible is you don't know right from wrong, which is just
Mhm.
crazy. Because if you look at it in Genesis 2:16, God commands and he says you can eat freely of any fruit in the garden, but just don't eat this one fruit from this tree, right? So really the command is you're free, just don't do this one thing,
Mhm.
right? That's all that's it. It says, and the Lord commanded the man, saying, you may freely eat of every tree in the garden, but you will not eat of the tree of the knowledge of good and bad. From the day that you eat it, you will surely die. Right? One command.
Mhm.
One command. And eat this tree, right? That was it. And by the way, when God created everything, he said it was all good. So nothing says that this fruit was bad or evil. It doesn't say the tree was bad or evil. He just said eating from the tree was bad. Are we getting it?
Absolutely.
And this is exactly what we do. So I talk about this in kind of the spiritual manipulation environment, but this is literally any sin. This is almost every sin.
Mhm.
Almost every sin.
Yeah.
If you look at it, fast forward, and the snake is talking to Eve, and he's saying, well, one, he says, does he say that you can't eat it and you'll surely die? She says, neither eat it nor touch it. So you've added an extra rule. So that's a whole nother sermon for another time.
Wow.
But he says this in verse 6. And when the woman saw that the tree was good for food. It's good. It's food. Food is good, right?
Hmm.
That it was pleasant to an eye. It pleased. She enjoyed it. She loved it. It was to be desired. She wanted it, right? People born this way to have a desire, however you want to phrase it.
Right.
These people are doing good things. Like even, there was a
Mhm.
time in Acts where it said, "Don't preach in Asia." I thought you're supposed to preach everywhere. It's like so. These will
Right. Taking
blow,
it out of context.
man, it will blow your mind. It will make you wise. Isn't wisdom good? How much of the Bible is talks about wisdom and all the proverbs about wisdom, right? And she took the fruit and ate it. So and if you look at pretty much all the sins, almost all the sins, the deceptives is they look at something good in it and they say, well, I define that it's good. And because I can define it, even find good things, find Bible verses to say that it's good. You could back this up, say everything about that tree was good. Yes, except the fact that you weren't supposed to eat it. And
Mm.
so we come into this. That's why we are deceived. That's why maturity is knowing right from wrong. I will not know. That's why you've got to get people who are on the outside.
Amen.
In the council of many, there is
Very
wisdom.
good.
And really in the word, but not just enough to know it. Like we just said earlier, is Proverbs 26. Answer full of corners folly. Don't answer full of corners folly. The Bible is all truth. It's not all the same type of truth.
Wow.
So yeah, so
That's
that
good,
will
man.
blow your mind and make you humble.
Absolutely.
This
That's
should
the key.
humble us. I don't know
Yes.
right from wrong. What does he say? Adam and God are in the garden. He says, "Where are you? Where are you?" And recognize that you cannot discern right from wrong without the word. And even with the word, even though the Spirit can lead you in all truth, you still need to be extremely humble wherever
Wow.
you're walking, whatever step you're taking.
Incredible. That's so good, man. I wish I had more I have so many questions that I wanted to like segue off of, but I know you have to go to work too. So what I wanted to wrap it up with is just a summary of what you just said, the stuff you just said, and also I want you to plug who you are, what you do, so that people can find you and support you and also learn because you have so much depth of knowledge of the Bible. Share it in such a way that it's extremely easy to receive. I think that's such a powerful gift you have. You've always had it. I think you'll always have that space too in any generation, Gen Z, Alpha, millennials like us, and boomers. It doesn't matter. You're just so likable, so easy to listen to. Two things: consistency. It'll change your life if you just commit to something, and God can shift your ways and choose to move you into a different space. And I hope we're mature enough to listen. But if he gives you one mandate, just do that and keep doing that, and you will be successful. And the second one, don't be deceived. And if you are deceived, get people around you. And if you don't know that you're deceived, always have people around you and listen to their advice. It is extremely important. If we listen to those two advices, I would be in a different place right now. And second, for you too, it's like you wouldn't have had to deal with the situation you were in for years and years. We can cut short a ton of suffering if we just listen to counsel in our life. Share who you are, where you are on social media, what you do, so that people can actually find you.
Well, thanks so much, man, for having me on. I love this. We'll definitely recap as well. So, Joshua Paul, bold follower. If you look up bold follower, we're on pretty much all the social medias. Really a big emphasis on the YouTube, though. So,
Mm,
we try to do live streams at least once a week where we do live questions and answers. We do Bible study, and then we get into whatever people have. And then I'd say, really, let's check back in like a year and see because there's a lot of stuff. You know how we talked about consistency?
yeah.
Just go, just do. But as you're consistent, God will add things. So I'm actually adding a lot of things onto the YouTube plate, really trying to not just go at this point, but really do it better under
Yes.
the mentorships. So yeah, join me on the
Incredible.
YouTube journey and see where that goes, what happens with that, or maybe nowhere. But I'd say that. I'd say go on YouTube. You can type in bold follower Jesus, sometimes even Joshua Paul. I'll pop up and join us on a live feed. Anthony, you'll be on a live feed
Yeah.
on the week of March 18th that week. So March
Yes.
20th, you'll be live. And then we can always recap and do this again. But yeah, thank
Right.
you so much.
Be epic. Oh man, love you, dude.
Love you, buddy. Thank you
Seriously.
so much,
Yeah.
man. You were an answer to
Absolutely.
prayer, man. What you
Same.
didn't say was that we were praying for best friends, and then all of a sudden we meet each other.
Exactly. It was praying for best friends at the exact same time. And I feel like this is also something to say just before, because you have to sign into work, but it's just powerful, man. Friends, having friendship that is low pressure is so important. Someone you don't talk for a month, 2 months, but you always wish each other happy birthday. And before you know, when you have a conversation, it's like no time left whatsoever. Like we need friends that are mature friendships that actually the stress and the pressure it doesn't even exist. And you just do life together. I think it's super important. So I'm thankful for you, man. Seriously.
Absolutely, man. Bless you,
Yeah,
brother. Thank you
dude.
so much, man.
Yeah, love you, man. And like, share, subscribe. I know someone out there will need what this man just shared. So thanks a lot, guys.